Journey into Irish Music Podcast, Episode 1, Bob Banerjee. 30-second intro starts now. Bob was born in Calcutta, India, but moved to the United States when he was 3 years old. Bob's father was a professor, but there was definitely some culture shock moving from India to the beef capital of America, Texas. But in 1967, they moved him out in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Bob's father played sitar and his mother was a dancer, so it was inevitable that Bob would pick up an instrument, the violin, because it was easiest to carry and fun to annoy people when he first got started. He got better. After 20 years of classical violin, Bob went over to the dark side and began playing improvisational country, bluegrass, reggae, jazz, rock, and Irish music. Bob was discovered by John McCain in the late 90s when he needed a fiddle player to fill out the sound of his album This Day, which is the catalyst for the corned beef and curry band, still a fixture in Pittsburgh's music scene. 28 seconds, cue the intro. The history of Irish music is as rich and magical as the island itself. Join me as we travel across Ireland and even down to the local pub to discover what makes Irish music so fascinating. This is Journey into Irish Music. And so, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Journey into Irish Music podcast, the first episode. And you just heard some hopefully lovely audio that I have put together myself. I'm going to call it lovely because, hell, I produced it. And I'm here with, and I couldn't be more excited to be here with my friend and an amazing musician and just part of the fabric of Irish music in Pittsburgh, Mr. Bob Banerjee. Welcome, sir.
Top of the morning to you, craic.
And as we can see, you are very Irish. One of the most Irish.
One look at me. I mean, look at the red hair and the freckles, and Matter of fact, I'm sure you know that when I play around Pittsburgh, sometimes instead of using my name Bob Banerjee, I have to introduce myself as Mahatma O'Reilly. So if it gives me more credibility that way.
Set those expectations,
Indeed it does.
So I want to talk about something first that just happened, and I had no idea what was happening until I saw it on your Facebook today. Was this book that just came out. So tell me about this. I'm going to put a link in the information here, but I think this is kind of a big deal.
It is kind of a big deal. It's a big deal to me because there is this venue that's called the Steamworks Creative Acoustic Stage, and it has been the breeding grounds of great acoustic solo performances by these musicians from all over Pittsburgh. And when I mean musicians from Pittsburgh, I mean these are not only people, there's some people that are starting out, but there are some people that are just top rockers that have been the top of the Pittsburgh rock industry for a long time, and they're getting a chance to do an acoustic show or bring in smaller versions of their band, duos and trios. And well, I've had my chance to also be on that stage, and I've had a great deal of great positive responses to some of the originals that I put out, and some of the violin looping that I've done and things like that. And this gentleman by the name of Skipp Barr, who archives things for Steamworks Creative, has put together a list of top musicians that have played there. And it's a wonderful coffee table book of portraits of all of these folks that have been part of the action. And just to be part of these 100 or so different people that he has profiled it's quite an honor. I'm humbled every time something like that happens, and I'm just so pleased to be recognized as somebody who is participatory and as well as living in this Pittsburgh music scene. So it's a great thing.
Well, like I said, congratulations. It looks amazing. It sounds like an amazing project, and I think people should go look into it, especially if you live in Pittsburgh, and when we're allowed to go outside again, you can go check that venue out, and I highly recommend it.
One of the other things that I love is that the owner, founder, manager of this, John Vento, is a musician himself. And the thing that I really love is he's very community oriented. He has actually used this venue to bring in people of various stages of autism. They have a special night where they have kids that are on all ranges of this spectrum that they bring in, and they give them their own open stage to do whatever they want. And it's incredible. Every year he's put this on, and it's been a amazing boost for how we feel about the Pittsburgh musical community and everybody in it, of every background. And it's so good if we can get this level of creativity from these young kids, and it gives them something very different to be accepted for. It's really good to get these kind of things. Again, what a community service. Every community should have somebody that puts up something like that. I really feel strongly that that any kind of different abilities should not be taken as they're different, but how do they make things even more creative? So, as you know, my wife has had multiple sclerosis for over 33 years, and we've come to grips with what her disabilities are versus what her abilities are, and It's something that stayed with me for the last 3 decades. So this is cool to see other people contributing like that within the community. So a lot of philosophy on that, but I just think,
oh sure, no, that's great. That's great. And again, it's something I very much appreciate, and I'm glad that's happening, and also that it's happening in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Pittsburgh. That's where I grew up. I haven't lived there since 1992, so it's been a while.
Oh, the Pirates are still losing. It's okay.
Yeah, nothing. Some things are never changed.
Some things never change.
But Pittsburgh is a great city for supporting the arts, and Irish music is included in that, obviously.
Nice.
And I think we first met. You had known my brother, but we first met. I don't know. Maybe 10, 15 some odd years ago, you were playing at probably Harp and Fiddle.
The Harp and Fiddle in the Strip District.
In Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think that's where it was. And I was visiting from St. Louis and caught your show, and just the energy of the crowd. This venue doesn't hold 1,000, 15,000 people. It's a small venue, but the energy of the crowd was as much or not more than some concerts I have seen with and exponentially more people. So
that's incredible. That is incredible that you remember that, because that is what we've strived for. That's what Irish music, as far as I'm concerned, Irish music is ultimately every kind of mental and spiritual and personal feel that you can get. There are sad songs, there are family songs, but then there are the songs that I live for, which are, they're clap your hands, stomp your feet, and drink your beer.
Absolutely.
These are phenomenal things.
And I will say that one show was what inspired me to actually form a band. I've been playing music, metal bands and things like that. And I've been playing Irish music for a while, but to actually form a band and go out and play the music myself, because I crave that same energy from the crowd. It was so infectious that it was something that really made me want to do it as well.
Good for you. Good for you. That's what we need to do, Craig. We need to get everybody. So all of you that are listening, okay, all of you that are watching, be aware that the best thing that you can do is find that way to share that stuff that Craig and I were just talking about. You'll feel better for it. I know you will.
Absolutely. And again, it was so infectious. The first time I ever met you, and the Corned Beef and Curry Band.
and notice you said, and he said it right, it's the Corned Beef and Curry Band. Now
right, not Cabbage. You're not a
That's
Cabbage,
not how
Bob.
it started. It's not how it started, though. The history of the band is kind of interesting. I'll kind of give you a short story of how I met John McCann, who was the lead singer of the band. He came from Buffalo, New York to Pittsburgh after he married his wife here in Pittsburgh, and became a solo Irish artist. And really played a lot of really neat places around Pittsburgh, really developed a nice reputation as a solo artist, playing all these great traditional Irish tunes. And in 1998, yes, back when dinosaurs ruled the earth,
right.
But in 1998, John was recording his first CD called This Day. And there was one tune in particular in it that was called McPhersons Lament. And actually it's called, I think in Ireland, there are versions of it that are called McPhersons Rant.
Right.
But it's a song that has a great history, and it's about an urban legend in Ireland by the name of McPherson, and he was a Robin Hood kind of character. He took from the rich and he gave to the poor, which made him a folk hero in all the villages that he went to. And one of the things he was known for is he played fiddle, and he would go to various of these community ceilidhs, the folk dances, the community dances. And at these ceilidhs, he would regale them with his violin. So not only was a folk hero, but he would play at these dances. Well, as the legend goes, he's still an outlaw, right? He's still stealing things. So the sheriff brings him in and captures him, and he's in jail. And the sheriff, being, your Guy of Gisborne or sheriff of the Robin Hood kind of stories, he is going to execute and hang McPherson.
A common theme in folk music.
A common theme, exactly right. Death to the outlaw, right? And of course, the people are petitioning the best that they can to see that he doesn't get hung. So the date has been set for the hanging, the time has been set, and they sent a petition to the governor to absolve him and to get rid of this awful, awful edict. And so they sent out riders or whatever to get something back. In the meantime, the executioner lines him up to be hung or hanged, excuse me. I guess it means two different things nowadays. Anyways,
sure.
To be hanged. And
that part was already predetermined.
One thing that he said was, McPherson, you're a bad guy, so here's what I'm going to do. When you're done, I'm going to take this fiddle that you played, and I am going to sell it to a top bidder, and that'll be worth something to me. And McPherson, in response, said, "Well, I'll tell you what. If you're going to do that, then you have to let me play one more tune before I die." And so he takes his fiddle, and he plays this amazing amount of everything that he has within his soul that comes out through the violin. He plays his fiddle tune, and then he takes the thing and he breaks it over a rock. Broken fiddle. And he says, there's nobody else that's going to play on this fiddle but me. And therein lies the song. Now, you think that's the end, but no. The executioner, in order to make sure that he's hung, there's a reprieve that is coming. But the executioner sets the clock back and sets a new time to it so that he is hung regardless. And therein lies what is McPhersons Lament. And it's a really cool song. So when John McCann came to me and said, I'd like you to play fiddle, he said, I'm going to give you this solo part, and I want you to play whatever comes to your mind. I want you to play everything. And I told John, you know I'm not an Irish fiddler. And he said, no, that's part of it. I want you to play as if it was your last thing that you ever had a chance to leave a legacy to your music. You play what you want to. And he said, and to make it even more, he said, to focus this in terms of what you're going to be feeling. Pretend like I want you to get into this sight that there is no more hope. You're going to go. The saddest thing that you could possibly imagine. Imagine if your favorite pet just got hit by a car. Imagine if your family, somebody just passed away. Well, of course, by that time, we were both bawling even before the tune started. And then we get into the studio space, and I think I put together an 8-minute solo that went through bluegrass and bluesy and double stops and chording and Irish flavoring and everything like that. And by the time I was through, just spent. And I can tell you that that's what got me started with thinking in terms of how Irish genre fits in with everything. Well, John loved what I did. It sounded so good. He said, why don't you play on some of the other Irish tunes that I have? So he had 12 songs. I played on 10 of them.
Nice.
And after that, we became really good friends, and we started performing live. And in the early 2000s, I would play at many of the places that John would play and became a regular partner. And we were playing at some gig and somebody came up and said, well, you know, it's really cool to see you, an Irish guy, and you, an Indian guy. And, what do you guys call yourselves? And, John and Bob. Well, hell, that's how creative is that? They said, no, you should have something that's more Irish and more Indian. So there was a night where somebody suggested, John, you're like, Irish food, corned beef. And Bob, you're like curry. And right then and there, corned beef and curry was born. So
Awesome.
That's how the name came. Now, obviously, we get the joke. What people look at me. I mean, look how Irish we were joking about this.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
It's not corned beef and cabbage under any circumstance. But that is what the first gig that we played at. They put in musical entertainment by the Corned Beef and Cabbage Band.
Oh.
So I went to the little blue-haired lady that put the program together, and I said, excuse me, miss, I'm sorry about this, but, it's not corned beef and cabbage. It's corned beef and curry, just like this, corned beef and curry. And she looked at me with this incredulous look and said, now what the hell kind of dish would that be?
Oh, and you couldn't say anything back.
No, that's when you walk away and you go,
right.
Okay, I get it.
I've got no comeback to that.
Perfectly.
You are right.
Anyways, the thing that we like about it is exactly this. We don't have to be 100% Irish. We're not traditional, but we try to take traditional Irish tunes and make them fun in our own ways, which sometimes means we rock them up a little bit. It means we change the way that they're presented.
So let's I want to focus on that for a second, because my next question was going to be, what keeps you playing the music? We've discovered sort of the epiphany, the catharsis that, recording with John, the one song where you just poured everything out, and then almost baptism became an Irish musician in just that like moment.
That's a wonderful way of saying it. Yes, that was my Irish baptism.
So at least an honorary Irishman, right?
At least.
So what is your favorite Irish tune to play, and why?
Boy, that's a Sophie's Choice question, man. You're asking me a really tough question.
That's why I said currently, because it gives you a little bit of an out. Like, right now at this moment, 10 minutes from now might be something different.
10 minutes from now, it's going to be something different. Absolutely. I love performing a song that was written by Flogging Molly right now. There's a tune that's out there called Float. And the three of us, John and Hamish and I, do in our version something that is really incredible. We prepare a wall of sound that doesn't have the whole Flogging Molly, multiple piece, huge drums, distortion guitar, all of those kind of things. Right. I love it because it allows me to do a change. I start playing mandolin, and then in the middle of the tune, after a chorus, it switches to fiddle.
Nice.
We have not recorded this in public, but our live responses have been, and this goes back to your question, why do I play this music? It has the beat, it has the rhythm, the groove, it has the rock and roll intensity that people get into. Right. And it really, it rocks the house when we play it. So right now, my favorite Irish tune is definitely our version of Float. Again, you're right. You can ask me in 10 minutes and I'll probably tell you something different.
And I might. So it's for you. And we talked about this, you touched on this a little bit earlier, the reaction of the crowd, being able to have the crowd as almost part of the band.
So all my life, I have been trying to find ways of getting less of a wall between the audience and me. My idea of a musical performance is not to walk on stage with a set list and to gauge my success as to whether I have finished everything on that set list. I don't think that's fair in an interactive environment. Now, if I'm in a performance hall, Okay, which all of us are, if we're lucky to do that, that's a different story altogether. That is the opportunity for you to make your mark, to be able to do your performance and get people to engage with themselves on their own, and then after the gig is over, to consider your body of work, your collection, and be able to see how that affects. There's with the passing of John Prine. I'm really surprised, not surprised either, I take that back, of the outpouring of people that have related to his music, both from an interactive standpoint and just being able to put on a song that was written 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and still be able to have as much fun with that song.
Oh, absolutely. And it was so surprising to me to see the various, like a lot of my friends who I'd never thought were John Prine fans were expressing their grief on the various social media, Facebook and things like that. And I've been playing John Prine in my sets for years. Paradise is always.
I agree with you. And then love songs like Angel from Montgomery, which is one of the first songs that I do non-violin oriented songs, but when I play guitar and when I have a set, I love doing that song because it's a folk song. It describes relationships. It describes the path of a relationship. I think that's great. Right. And again, based on your question, why do musicians play music? Why do I play the kind of music? It's because I want people to have a emotional or visceral response to what I'm doing. Right. I want to make you laugh. I write stupid songs, okay? And I write really heartfelt songs. So some of my songs are stupid, like La 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 Beer Me. And some of them are really deep songs like Oh How the Girl Keeps Her Smile, which is what I wrote for my wife. These are things that I've recorded and I've done in public, but nothing makes me happier than seeing a response, whether it's a dad joke groan that comes after it, or whether it's a deep appreciation of how in one song I was able to capture what relationship with my disabled wife is like. So those are the kind of things that make me move. But the thing that makes me happiest most is an interactive, non-barriered musical performance where people are drawn in at the same time to my music, leading directly to why play Irish music. Right. Because it is foot stomping, beer drinking, hand clapping. It's rowdy pub music. I love the term pub music because Corned Beef and Curry Band is definitely a pub band. We love being in the middle of crowds and getting the interaction. As a musician, I know other musicians can relate instantly. When you get an entire crowd all singing, whether it's something like No, Nay, Never, when they're singing it all together, or whether it's Danny Boy, where they're all singing it under their breath, but knowing that it means so many different things. It is so cool to get that interaction. Irish music does that. When we had a previous conversation, Craig, where I said Appalachian music, country music, they're all cousins. They're all derivatives. Absolutely. It's funny how you can take the same 3 or 4 chords and you can add folk temperament behind it, and you can get songs that last forever. They're historical legacies, people that have done this. In your opinion, what makes a song Irish music? A technical answer is that if it's an Irish tune, it's written to be ultimately folklore. It's designed to tell a story. There are ballads, like the ballad of Where Are You Going, Willie McBride. I think the song is called Willie McBride. Green Fields of France. Green Fields of France. One of the saddest songs, but it describes World War I in a way that people can only get from the feeling of this young man from the Isles. I mean, that's a beautiful song, and it makes it Irish because of the ballad purpose of it. And that is how their histories and their experiences were parlayed communications-wise to others. And here's what's really cool. Others would hear that song and say, not much different from what goes on in my village and what goes on in my life. Right. And ultimately that allowed them to add verses or change things to personalize it, and then take that and build upon that song. And
I
to
think that's
share
important because, and I don't want to necessarily mean up here, I'm just kind of geeking
Yeah.
out on this as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to sort of highlight that. That is another hallmark of Irish music is the tunes often stay the same, but the
Yes.
words change. And you'll hear songs that have the exact same tune. They'd be a completely different song. Wearing of the Green and Rising of the Moon.
Exactly. And for all intents and purposes, you could even have the same chords from different counties. They may
Right.
have their own county version of doing that. But you're so right. And isn't that typical of what folk music should be about? There's only so many things you can do with that. But then you start adding things, like you start adding different rhythms. The Bodhrán starts playing some different type of cadences when they're going on, or the guitar has a different drone to it to make that happen.
Right.
And that's how there's such the diversity of the Irish music is based upon how those kind of things are done. But
and they could be a completely different feel too.
Yeah.
Like generally Loch Lomond and Red is the Rose are often
Rose.
played the same, but completely different tone as far as the song itself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And those are perfect examples. Those two in particular are perfect examples because I've had people ask me to do that in our band, like at different times at night, one song for Loch Lomond and one for Red is the Rose. And it's weird because as we start playing, it's like, did we just travel back in time? Because we're playing the same basic song.
Right.
But it's great because that is folk music. I mean, and again, let's tie that into Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley, or something like that. There's all the 3-chord, 4-chord stuff that's out there that has lasted as folk, Appalachian, country, Irish, Celtic artists bring a story. And Irish music is great for stories. Absolutely. Anybody that knows an Irish person, a true Irish person, one of the most important things to do when you're listening to an Irish person is you understand that they have stories to tell. And they will not have a shortage of stories.
Not at all.
A true Irish person, a true person from Ireland, or being a descendant of Irish people here, they will have stories for you. That's incredible. And those stories are put with some background music, and they become the Irish music tradition that is being passed along. I love that idea of sharing those stories and sharing that feeling with a crowd. And
that's sort of, I mean, that's existed in Ireland. There's a word for it. It's called craic.
It is indeed. Craic.
Yes, not Craig, which is how my name is spelled with a G. The craic. And there's no real definition for it. It's just exactly what we've been talking about.
It's
getting together, that energy.
Yes.
Maybe it's just talking. Maybe it's just chat. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's a session. But whatever it is, it's going on where everybody is.
Exactly. The best way that I can give an English word for it, craic, is essentially it's a party. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a hoo-ha party,
right?
But it's a gathering. It's people that are having, whether it's campfire, whether it's around a bar drinking table, whether it's Oktoberfest all together, it's all that. That's all the craic. That's a merriment that is meant to be had by that camaraderie.
So let's switch gears for a slight second, because I want to talk about, I always try to have an educational piece in any of these sorts of things I do.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it before, but I want to kind of briefly touch on it. And I'll have some fun graphics and everything spinning around, I'm sure, by the time this happens. But we hear the term Irish fiddle, and we hear the term violin or violinist. So briefly, tell me what the difference is between playing the violin and playing the fiddle.
All right, so the difference between a fiddle and a violin, is it's the same instrument. It's the same instrument in the same way that a guitar played by Eddie Van Halen, Jimi Hendrix, and Edge from U2 and B.B. King, they're all playing the same guitar. So the difference in fiddle and violin is style. It's taking the same hardware and then making it so that it's more adaptable to the music. Where the Irish and Celtic music puts this to play is that they, at times, unlike classical, where violin was meant to be a voice in a choir of other instruments, unlike that, the fiddle fits in well at a barnyard dance.
Right.
So it's a good thing where you don't need to worry about it. You can make it percussive, you can make it melodic, you can make it so that you can lead people in a dance and people can listen to that and make that happen. Then you start adding things like a bodhrán. Then you start adding things like guitar and whatever else. And all of a sudden it becomes a bigger picture. So the fiddle and the violin are stylistically different, even though hardware-wise, they're essentially using the same thing. Now, whereas the classical violinists make this more technical, even in the way that their violins are set up, fiddle players, because it's all about the sound and noise, they may adjust their bridges, they may adjust the strings, they may adjust all of these so that it becomes louder and more folky. So I'll just end with this thought that classical musicians are just as able to play fiddling tunes as fiddlers are able to play a classical tune. It is a matter of getting whoever's playing it and where they go with it. So hopefully that describes in a short way of what the difference
Absolutely.
is.
And we talked about the rhythm as well, and the infectious rhythm. And that's one of the hallmarks of Irish music is the jig. The jig is sort of on the forefront of what people tend to think of when you think of Irish traditional music, trad music. And a jig is a 3/4 rhythm, right?
Right? So very popular. Irish Washerwoman is what it's called, that particular jig. You're right. It's so not meaning to stop you, but you're right.
Oh, no, go ahead.
The jig is very popular, right? The other one that's very common that most people will see are reels. Reels are similarly arranged in terms of folkiness, but the difference between the two is the rhythms they use. It's the same difference between using a waltz and a hoedown. Okay, a waltz follows. I'd like to do you a waltz in 4. There are rules.
Right.
Similarly, there are rules of what does a jig in 3/time or 6/time or 6/8 time. Right. There are rules for jigs. They're either in 2/4, 4/4.
Reels are 2/4. Reels are 2/4.
Reels are 2/4.
Right, and then
jigs are 3s. 3s and 6s.
Polkas are 2/4.
Polkas, hornpipes.
Hornpipes.
So there's and then there's things that are really cool, like slip jigs, where they'll go through and they'll add in one bar. They'll add a note for 4,
right.
and
which is impossible. It's impossible. And one of the best known slip jigs is Rocky Road to Dublin.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
For context, everybody who's not a musician, and you can sort of see the difficulty in the chorus, how it comes together. Hunt the hare and turn it down the Rocky Road all the way to Dublin. So that's where you get that extra note in there, that extra beat.
Yes,
it's so fun to listen to, but hard to play.
Though?
Yeah,
who thought of that? You know what we'll do to really screw things up? You know, especially for the dancers, we'll put in one more where they got to figure out where that left leg comes in again twice.
Right. Hopefully you have some sort of semblance of rhythm, because if someone throws a slip jig at you, it's over.
You are so right.
But something I was told, another thing to make it more accessible, was when I went to, when I was hanging out with some musicians in Ireland, we're telling people, if you don't want to know the difference and you don't know much about music and you want to know the difference between the beat, if it's a jig or a reel, is if you can say it's a jig, if you can speak the rhythm as rashers and sausages, rashers and sausages, rashers and sausages. And the reel is Black and Decker, Black and Decker, Black and Decker.
Very good. Very good. So, I've not heard that, but I totally relate to that. I totally relate to that. I like it.
Right. So, and again, it just, if, we're sort of geeking out on this music and talking, oh yeah, jigs and slip jigs. But if somebody doesn't have a reference for that, that's, something you can sort of, oh yeah, this is a jig. Now I know more than you.
Dude, that was a great education for me. That's great. That is something I will remember now to pass on. Well done.
So Not only got that, but let's come back to Bob Banerjee playing music. So you have recorded how many CDs of Irish music? How many albums? Let's put it that way.
Well, I've with Corned Beef and Curry, we have a total of 4, I think, out now. We have the original one called This Day. We have Pub Tings. Actually, we have 3 then, I guess. The latest one that we put on is called Live-ish Irish by Corned Beef and Curry Band. And it's really cool because here's what we did. We took a live show that we did at the Club Cafe in Pittsburgh. And again, with 3 pieces, right? With John and I in it. And what we did is we took that into the studio and we said, you know, it's nice to have this as our base, but what we need to do is we will add further harmonies, we'll add further percussion. So what we did is essentially use the core of all the live stuff and then add a whole bunch of other things to make it a more studio produced, studio recorded album. So we had a lot of fun going through and adding some songs. So we were talking about Rocky Road to Dublin. That's on it. We have Star of the County Down, I think, or what else. But we also have really fun stuff from Van Morrison and Galway Girl by Steve Earle. We have a great version of that. So, not that I'm hawking the CD, but it's an opportunity for us to Americanize a lot of the traditional Irish tunes that we did and make it more rock and roll worthy and studio worthy. So that was our last major project. Since that point in time, I mean, I've also written and released a couple of CDs also, but they're not necessarily Irish. One is called La 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 Beer Me, and the other one is called Foreign Country, which has exactly what you would expect, a Indian playing cowboy music.
Nice.
Whether it's rock and roll or not. So those have been my projects, but I do have one that's in the works right now, which will be a violin instrumental CD. I have been working on this for a while, and it will have Irish tunes. It'll have, believe it or not, my attempt to do some Indian tunes on this, and it'll have some folky kind of tunes and some originals that I do with my loop box, because I really become very comfortable with using a loop box and using a backbeat and then building upon that. And so I'm looking forward to introducing that as my new project. So
awesome. Because that was going to be my next question: is what is the future of music for Bob Banerjee?
Well, that's a good question. All musicians are trying to figure this out because this, the virus has changed life as we know it. I do not expect that Corned Beef and Curry is going to get back to being able to entertain large crowds of people in a pub anytime soon. It's not there. So our projects are going to be, I think, more collaborative by internet than they've ever been before. I'm doing this right now almost every day of the week. I'm getting tracks in my Dropbox. I put them into my PreSonus Studio One music program. I add violin tracks, mandolin tracks to that, send back the WAV file of that to other musicians so that they can add whatever they want for effects or whatever they want to take out for their solos or whatever else. I think that's the future of a lot of collaboration near term until they get all the other stuff that's out there. So, I'm always looking for new projects like that. That's going to be a real cool thing.
That's going to be one great, a lot of great art comes from adversity, or can come from adversity, whether it's positive art or critical art.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see what happens.
So I have this just came to me just now, Craig. I have a topic for you to try and dig into.
Oh, sure.
So we know this pandemic hasn't happened since 1917, 1918, right? With the Spanish.
Not in America.
Not in America. What happened to music then? How was music affected?
That is a great question.
Isn't that?
That is a great question.
So asking you as professor to professor here, I would leave it to you to talk to an audience and find out whether they or whether one of your students or somebody might be able to come up with it. And in the same way that it changed their legacy, in the same way that it changed their ability to perform and record back in those days, I would love to find out how to compare that to what we're going through right now. The closest that I can give you is one of my favorite stories, and I love sharing the stories. One of the influences that I have for playing music, especially in violin, is jazz violin. Jazz violin, specifically with Stefan Grappelli and Django Reinhardt. They played in a thing called the Hot Club of Paris in the middle of World War II.
Wow.
My favorite story is they're in Paris as the Germans are bombing all around them in the club that they're playing. And at one point, there was a bomb that explodes and all the power goes out. And what they do is they take everybody to the basement of the hot club. So just imagine, if you will, a small group of audience members all going down to this basement, and they've got all these players that took their instruments down with them, all acoustic, right?
Right.
To keep these audience members mellow during the time that the bombs were bursting around them. The legend is that those guys put on a concert in the basement as the bombs were flying around. I don't know how true it is, but as a folk story, that is it. That is
amazing.
else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a great lead-in, actually, because my final question for this interview would be, how do you want to be remembered?
Sober?
As a musician? How about this? How do you want to be remembered as a musician? Because sober doesn't have to be part of that.
That's wonderful. God, that is ultimately the best philosophical question. I want to know that I've made a difference in your music. How's that for philosophy?
That's
don't
great.
want to... I'm not a soloist. I don't want the attention, but I want to know that I helped you accomplish what you wanted, either listening to music, singing music, playing music. I'm thrilled to be part of other people's musical lives, and I'll continue to do that until it goes away from me. So that is how I want to be done.
I am thrilled to have you as part of sort of almost my extended family, your friendship with my brother, and sort of our, interactions as well. So it's already starting. You're already being thought of and remembered fondly. And again, you were the inspiration for me to actually get an Irish band going. So you are living it without even knowing it.
Well, as they say in Pittsburgh, right? Yin's a good kids now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bob. We're going to break until next episode. And thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in. And we'll see you next time. Journey into Irish Music. I'm Craig Mayhem signing off.